and welcome to another episode of Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I'm your host, Amanda, and my fantastic co-host is...
Hello, I'm Meagan.
So we are your messy, imperfect homeschool mom friends and mentors. So if you're new here, welcome. And so just to kind of catch you up on what we do drop 2 episodes every week, right? The first one is homeschooling specific, like we're doing right now. And then a little later in the week, we have a virtual book club episode. Goodness, clearly I needed more coffee today. So today's topic is how video games can boost learning and strengthen bonds. So we've done a few different episodes lately about curriculum and various resources that especially appeal to more traditional homeschoolers. But there are loads of ways to successfully homeschool, some of which, like game schooling, can be super misunderstood and underappreciated.
Yes, absolutely. I know I thought when you introduced game schooling, people are probably like, Amanda just introduced game schooling, but we're going to have some fun today. This is normally when we talk curriculum, we're outside my wheelhouse. Today we're outside Amanda's, right?
Mm-hmm.
So today we'll be chatting all things game schooling with the incomparable Devyn Ricks of Devyn's Video Game Universe. Hello, Miss Devyn.
Hello, it's so good to see you guys. I'm super excited for today.
Yeah, so we are excited to dive in. We've got lots to talk to you about today. Oh, and it's Miss Devyn's birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for me to not call you Miss Devyn because my kids take class with Devyn and her and people on her team. And so, like, she's just been Miss Devyn in my life for so many years. But yeah, she's a grown-up. I'm a grown-up.
You can just call me Miss Devyn. That's fine.
It works, right?
It's kind of like who I am now. You know, I'm like, I'm Miss Devyn. Actually, just call me Devyn. That's fine. Either works.
But my parents live with us and we have contractors that'll come to the house and they all call my mom Grammy because it's just like, that's how they know her. And so like these like grown men that show up to her will be like, hey, Grammy, do you have blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, roll with it, Grammy. So
Love it.
Devyn, we start off our episodes with a traditional weekly recap. So kind of our imperfect moments of the week. So how's your week been, Amanda?
My week has been okay, actually. So we live in Southern California and we live quite close to the coast. And just yesterday, my kiddo's afternoon parkour class got canceled. It's in the outside. It's in a park.
Ooh.
And the person messaged me and was like, it's a really hot day. If you want to bring extra water, you can, but the other 2 kids have canceled. So, your kiddo would be the only one. We can totally cancel and just meet next week. I'm happy to refund it. And I had also had to do a landscape walk in my community. I'm on the landscape committee and we look at stuff and everyone was complaining about how hot it was. And I was like, how hot is it? I mean, it's a little uncomfortable. Like I'm a little sweaty. How hot is it? And I looked it up and it's 86 degrees.
Yeah, it was like
and
Southern Californians in heat.
Everyone's losing their mind. We can't handle it, right? I'm just like, we're so weak. We're so weak when it comes to heat. So that was like a little bit of a funny thing. I took a screenshot and thought I would send it out to our book mom group, actually. We're just kind of dealing with like the random things that are popping up. I've been super busy because this is the week that like I had to turn in our lesson plans for the first semester. I also had to submit all of our purchase orders for our instructional funds, which is a thing in California and some other states. So I just had like a bunch of paperwork that's a little tedious that I had to actually do. So I've been working on that. And then on top of all of that, as soon as we finish recording, I'm hosting a social for our community. So we have 260 condos in our community and we do a couple big socials every year and it's at a restaurant, which is all fine and good. I've been really busy. I confirmed at the end of July. Yesterday, I emailed the GM of the restaurant, was like, hey, just confirming, want to make sure that we're still on the same page. Like, this is what our budget is, blah, blah, blah. And he messaged me back and he was like, I don't have you on the calendar. Like, can we postpone? I was like,
no.
Actually, no. Yeah, pretty much. No, like the signs have been up. It went out in the newsletter on like August 2nd,
we'll be there.
Yeah, like either we're there or we can postpone until like April of next year because we have stuff in September, October, early December. I'm out of town January, February. We have something in March, the schedule is booked. So, so that was a little bit crazy. And then I had to get up early this morning, which I know a lot of people who listen are like, I don't understand how you can get up so late, but we're a late rising family. And I had to actually set my alarm for 6:30 this morning to get up and put up signs all over the community that's like, free food tonight, like tonight, to remind people to,
before they went to work.
That's it. It's actually tonight, like, don't go to happy hour somewhere else, come to our happy hour kind of thing. So like all little things, it just means I'm probably not, I lost quite a few hours of sleep last night that I would normally get. So we'll see how today goes.
We're here for it.
So how about you? What do you got going on?
Just status quo. Like, so last week was okay. The week before, Devyn and I showed up after I had just cried, so that was fun. And I put a drink umbrella in my lemonade to make me feel better. But like status quo, I have one kiddo who's at camp. I actually got like a proof of life from him. I hadn't heard from him in about 2 weeks. And I had texted him something. I was torn. Like, I didn't really want to bug him, but one of his college professors, I'm friends with him on Facebook Messenger because they're a homeschool family in our community. So him and his wife, I'm Facebook friend, and he had sent me something that he thought Ada might be interested that was for sale on Marketplace equipment, a tool thing. And I was like, do I send it? Like, I don't want to interrupt his camp experience, but then at the same time, like if I don't, he'll be like, oh my gosh, I've been dying for one of those and I lost it, So I was like, so I sent it to him and he actually called me. I was like, who are you? I mean, when he travels, like I don't hear from him. I'm like, no news is good news, right? So I got to talk to him, which was good. So that was good. And I voted the dishwasher right before I came, which has been like daunting me because I was like, last night I was like, I just don't. I watched the Democratic National Convention last night and then I just wanted to go to bed. So like, I was like, I really need to do this. So like, it feels good when you've had something kind of like weighing on you that you get done. Even if it's just small like that, like I'm just like, oh, thank gosh, that's done, Yeah, so that's that. I did pull myself together today. We had someone on YouTube tell us that if we don't pull ourselves together, something along the lines of like our kids will never respect us or know how to be functioning adults or something if we don't keep our houses clean and know how to pull ourselves together. And I was thinking like, if your kids only respect you because you have lipstick on, like that seems odd. But I did. So that lady will be really happy. But I've done it. I see you've both got lipstick on too. So you're good mother of the year for all three of us today, right?
That is good moms today, wearing lipstick.
Our one status as women in life is to look good and show our kids how to make themselves pretty for their husbands when they grow old.
I love it.
So yeah, that's pretty good. But so I'm pumped to talk game schooling. Let's do this. Welcome, Devyn. So Devyn, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourselves as our newcomer for the week?
Yeah, so I've been a gamer my entire life. So I remember playing on the Nintendo 64 and the Super Nintendo when I was just old enough to hold a controller. And it was funny because like I was not good as a child, obviously. And so my brother would be playing a game and he would just give me one that was like unplugged so I could like play along. And I felt like I was like totally part of the adventure. So gaming has been like a big part of my life for forever. And so when I first started with online teaching and developing my own curriculum, I knew I wanted to incorporate gaming because it impacted me so much as a child. And I just loved it. So I started out with doing like Spanish and creative writing classes that were very gaming centered. So instead of like, the apple is red or like the banana is orange or yellow in Spanish, I'd be like Pikachu is yellow and like the whatever, Foy Coco is red. And so I loved it because I was able to bring like this education and this gaming world of mine together. And so what I started to realize though is as I was having these classes, it was my Zelda class. That's like where I think it all started, was with my Zelda creative writing class. Because a lot of people don't realize, but video games have so much depth of character development and story and plot line, just so much depth. And so I loved this class. But my students were like, Ms. Devyn, I'm stuck on this boss or on this level. Can you help me? And I'm like, well, I can't really help you because we're talking about writing, but maybe on the last day, we'll have a day where I can help you guys. And then they kept asking me like, Ms. Devyn, I need help with this. Can we have a social club? I was like, sure. Let's do it. Let's try it. And I very much grew up in a house where it was like education was on one side and fun was on the other side. They did not collide, And so I was kind of like, I don't know if parents are going to want this for their kids. I don't know if there's a value here. But so I started hosting social clubs and all of a sudden I saw there was immense value and immense demand from parents because I was giving kids a community of gamers and I was giving them a space where they could be their authentic selves. And it works because I am authentically myself with gaming because kids, you know, they know so much about these games. And so if they show up and they're like, oh, talking about this Pokemon, and you're like, Pikachu, then they'll smell it and they'll bounce. But if I can, you know, match their geek or whatever, match their nerd because it's something I love too, then it's just this amazing environment. So that is how Miss Devyn's video game universe came to be.
Well, we're so glad you're here today. Thank you for joining us. So one of the strengths that Amanda and I have always kind of felt about our podcast is that on the spectrum of homeschooling, we are on polar opposite ends, right? She's an aggressive academic homeschooler. I'm a loosey-goosey unschooler. And we also have varying viewpoints about games. And so I think it's interesting now that we're throwing Devyn into the mix today, who's got a third perspective on games. And so I think it's about to get pretty good in our convo today. It's going to be pretty awesome. So...
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, so you, just so everyone knows that's listening, you, Meagan, and Devyn, you guys already know one another. Meagan kind of alluded to it. And Meagan even refers to Devyn as the queen bee of game schooling. So I also have a queen bee of game schooling in my world, but it's board games, right? So I don't know. I know very, very little about video games in general, right? In all of the ways. So this is going to be an interesting conversation.
Well, and as we're talking, Amanda, a lot of the things in video games are very much the same as in board games, and they're just digital. And so as we're talking about it, if you can, and if anyone listening understands how board games work, you understand how video games work. The only difference is we're not playing on a table, we're playing on a screen. So I think you'll find a lot of connections between the things we're going to be talking about with what you've seen with board games with video games also.
Yeah, I mean, I will be the first to admit that my thoughts have evolved very slowly on gaming, right? I've been a parent for 16 years now, and we've always been big board game people, right? I've always got a deck of cards in my purse. We're big Mexican train people. I mentioned going to Antarctica. We brought Mexican Train to Antarctica with us. And it was funny because it brought the other gamers out of the woodwork. Somebody was like, I brought Skip Bo. And then another couple was like, we also brought Mexican Train, right? And so we ended up having like little meetups in the lounge where we would all play card games and stuff like that. So we've always been big on those games. When we'd sit at a restaurant, we bring a deck of, I mean, we don't go to fancy restaurants, right? I'm not sitting at a place with like linen tablecloths and busting out a deck of cards. But like if we're at a pizzeria while my kids were little, they weren't tablet kids, they were deck of card kids. We'd play Go Fish, we would play whatever. So we've always had that, but I was adamantly against video gaming. Sorry, Devyn, I was like super adamantly against video gaming. Now, spoiler alert, we did get a PS4 about 3 years ago. My kiddo went to Formula One. He's always been he's a car guy. He's my husband's kid, right? And he went to F1 and somebody had a simulator, a driving simulator. And he just had my husband was like, you had to see him. He just had the best time ever. Could we get him a driving simulator? And I was like, oh, it's a slippery slope, and I really didn't want to do it, but we ended up getting it for him. But I will say, Amanda and I, were you in book club, Amanda, when the book club read Raising Critical Thinkers by Julie Bogart?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'd have to actually look at it to know.
It was, okay, dare I say, because Julie Bogart is the queen bee of homeschooling. It was a little on the dry side. Like it read a little bit like a textbook, but there was a lot of really great info in there. And Julie was more pro gaming than I anticipated she would be, right? She kind of went through all these examples of ways where her kids learned through gaming and stuff like that. And so I kind of had a couple of moments, right? First of all, I flashed back to, I love when I'm struggling with something to take it out of that context and apply the exact same dilemma or like mental juggling to another scenario, right? So when my kids were little, I had one pacifier kid and two stuffy kids, right? And my daughter had her pacifier longer than was quote unquote socially acceptable. She was 3-4 years old by the time she gave it up. We'd taken her to the dentist. She had no dental issues. Like there was no reason to wean the kid off the pacifier. So my husband would be like, when are you going to take the pacifier away? And I was like, okay, but we're not talking about taking stuffies away from the boys. So like, why are we talking about taking her pacifier away? Like that's her comfort item the same way. So I looked at gaming the same way. I kind of applied those two scenarios and I was like, all right, if my kids were playing like some marathon game of Monopoly for like 3 hours, I'd be like, oh my gosh, sibling bonding and look at this cooperative play. And I'd take a picture and post it on Facebook and be like, look at them. My heart is so warm, right? But then if they were gaming for 3 hours on a digital game, I'd be like, oh, what a waste of time. Right. And like, I wouldn't have any of those same things. And so I started to check my own kind of prejudices and stigma about gaming. And so I'm not saying I'm Devyn level of pro gaming, but I've evolved, right? I've definitely evolved over time. So my stance has changed a little bit, which, you know, I think is okay. I'm good with it. We're in a happy place with gaming, so it kind of works with us, you know?
Well, no, that's it. I mean, hopefully we're all evolving, right? So I'm gonna put a couple full disclosures out there. First off, we also have a driving simulator. My husband tracks cars for fun, cars and motorcycles actually, and so we have one. And my husband and my kiddo were both playing it this past weekend, and kind of this week they've been doing some driving and stuff like that. So, you know, I mean, I say I'm anti-gaming. There are obviously exceptions. We've talked about that before. The other full disclosure that goes into that a little more, and again, we've talked about this before, but we personally have taken a very low tech offline approach to child development and screens in general. For us, the research on avoiding and limiting screen use in early childhood was really compelling, right? Everything from helping with sleep to cognitive and social skills, critical thinking, language development. And then in the elementary and teen years, you have those same similar kinds of concerns. And then you get to add in all the fun things like mental health issues and exposure to things that you wouldn't normally have happen in an in-person situation with full adult supervision, right? So like kind of all of those things combined to where like I'm really just personally, I feel like you can almost always learn something really valuable from reading or being creative. And I don't personally feel that that's true with screen time. Now, yes, you can learn from things, right? But you can also just get sucked into screen time and waste hours and not actually learn or enrich yourself in any way, shape, or form. And so for us, just having those set limits kind of for everyone has really helped. Like my husband hates the fact that when we go on vacation, the TV in the hotel room does not get turned on. There is no good reason to turn on a hotel room TV, in my opinion, right? Like everyone brought books. I made sure everyone had books. We were not the cards at the restaurant table. I always have little books. You get a little book. There's either a word book or puzzles or, you know, things like that, like, and talk and that kind of stuff. So it's just a difference, right, in the way that we have done things. So with all of that caution around screens in general, like, I'm going to be honest, game schooling, even with physical board games, isn't something that we have utilized very much in our homeschooling. So here we go. I mean, I'm interested to see how this conversation goes, right? So let's start off with a big picture view. What skills do you think can be learned from gaming? Or through gaming, I guess, maybe.
I love that one. Well, and I love that you both gave your perspectives on gaming, because you're absolutely right. Everyone falls on this gaming spectrum in different places, right? And there's not a right and there's not a wrong. It is whatever is right for your family. It is whatever is right for your children. That is the most important thing. And, you know, I've talked with several people before about different games, because some people like this game or don't let their kids play this game, whereas other houses allow that game. And so I completely agree that it's all about how you decide to parent your children, right? There is no right answer or wrong answer. And so what skills, I'm going to talk about a couple things, because there were a few things, Amanda, you said that I loved. And so I'll start off with your direct question, and that is, what skills are learned from video games? What a lot of people who don't game as much as I do see in games is that games are really just a series of puzzles that need to be solved. And you are given limitations on how to solve that puzzle. And so you have to think creatively about how you are going to achieve the goal. And that is in every single game. Some games, it's much more obvious. So a game like Legend of Zelda is what you call an RPG, a role-playing game. You are the character, you're walking around, you're building the story. That is a very, very puzzle-centric game. You'll go up to people and they say, hey, I lost my cow. Can you go find my cow? And you have to go find the cow, right? Or you'll walk into a room and it says you have to get the stick from point A to point B, and all you have is a fan. How are you going to do that? So a game like Zelda is very, very puzzle centric. And so it gives those creative thinking muscles a lot of work. And it's so cool because in a game like Tears of the Kingdom, kids can actually engineer and build their own machines. And it's so cool to see what kids build because they have all these different pieces and they have to coordinate it so that the wheels turn at the right time and so that the arrow shoots at the right moment to be able to take out the enemy. So I think that there's a lot of critical thinking and puzzle solving when it comes to video games. And that's a very direct one. But there's a lot of very subtle ones that a lot of people look over. I have found that students can read very well when they want to read video games, right? Like Pokemon, there is not a word spoken in the entire Pokemon game. There's no voiceovers, there's nothing. And so if you want to figure out, is my Pokemon going to learn a bad move or a good move, you better learn how to read the word growl or the word tackle, right? And so they start to learn these reading skills when they're motivated to. That's what I've seen. And so reading is a really, really big one because they want to know how to succeed. They want to know the story. And so if you're sitting next to them and they say, what does that say? It's a great time as a parent to say, well, let's sound it out. What does that say? And then they'll remember it and then they start to recognize it as they go along. I remember as a child realizing that I could see the word tackle as soon as I was a word I learned how to read specifically from Pokemon. Now, is tackle a word that I use often in my vocabulary? Yes, because I'm a gaming teacher, but it's neither here nor there. So there's also that element of reading. If we're talking academic skills, reading, math, budgeting, and economics, those are huge in every single game because without a doubt, you start every game at absolute zero. You are standing there with nothing around you on a beach, usually, or waking up in a bed, and you have to accomplish your goal. But in order to do so, you have to earn money. You have to spend the money wisely. You have to budget your money accordingly. You have to decide, is it worth buying the raw meat and cooking it myself? Or is it better to buy the cooked meat, even though it's a little bit more expensive? And so kids are making these economic decisions all the time. They don't realize it, right? Like they have no idea that's what they're doing, but they do it very intuitively, which is just fascinating to me. And same with math. It's like, okay, I have 500, gold, and this is going to cost me 200 gold. How much am I going to have left over? 300. That's great. So there's a lot of those academic skills, but it's hard to measure because we can't measure it because it's just the experience. It's just going about and doing the things. But I'll tell you this, like every single child in my Pokemon classes is better at statistics and probability than I will ever be, without a doubt, because they do it all in their mental math so quickly because they have a second. They have a second to make that decision, to choose what move they're going to do. And if they choose wrong, they lose. So quick thinking, I guess, would be on that list also.
I think too, I see my boys, when you talk about statistics and Pokemon, they play in the big tournaments and the cups and the regionals and all that stuff. And they'll watch the enrollments even before the events because they're looking at it to see if it hits. There's different thresholds, right? So if they get, 64 players, if they get 128 players, then their odds are changing and the points are changing based upon how many. So even before they get there, they're looking at those numbers and calculating, where am I better off landing and where do I have to end up in order to get what I need for the ultimate goal of getting points and all that kind of stuff. And they're rattling this stuff off to me and I'm just sitting there like,
so fast.
How on earth, like the mental gymnastics that they put into this stuff. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's bananas.
No, it is really cool. So yeah, those are some of the skills I think I would say are the ones I see most often in gaming. There's some others, but those would be my top ones.
Okay, so follow-up question to that. Is there an advantage to learning those skills through gaming as opposed to some other activity where they might be reinforced?
A lot of it depends on the child, right? And it's all motivation. I think that's a big part of it too. If you have a child who's resisting reading and doesn't want to read, you're going to have to get creative one way or another, right? Whether that's putting on subtitles on the show you're watching or playing a game, you have to get creative. Sitting down and maybe reading the book isn't the right choice for them. That doesn't mean that that's a bad choice, right? It doesn't mean that that's the wrong choice. It's just for the child that something else works better. And so I don't think that you necessarily are better off learning through video games or better off learning through traditional education. I think the most important thing is to take the cues from your child and be creative about it. Because if you have a child who's struggling in any of these areas, whatever it is, and you can find an interesting way for them to learn it, they will always be more successful, whether that's through making a business, reading a book, playing a game, whatever it is. As long as you capture that child's attention, they will soar and they will excel in whatever it is.
Right. I think that's the heart of it, right? This idea that again, homeschooling, you can do it lots of different ways. And there are lots of ways to do it right and only a few ways to do it wrong. And, like, figure out what works for your kiddo. And I see it a lot, the parents who really want one way to work and it just doesn't. It's not. And they refuse to course correct or try new things. And that, this is one of those things or skills that can really fill in that gap in certain homes for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. All right, so let's talk specific games, right? So my boys are big Pokemon players. They play TCG, which is the card game. And so if your kid has a random collection of Pokemon cards in a drawer and they just like looking at them and showing them to their friends, there's an entire game structure behind those cards, right? Like they're not just fun collectibles, although people certainly do that too. But there's an entire game structure. There's community, there's events, there's, oh my goodness, like hours and hours and hours in my home every week are devoted to TCG. So you need someone to teach your kid how to play the game. I happen to know someone. Okay, we'll talk about that later. So, exactly, right? So again, going back to my kind of stigma of, old-fashioned games, if you will, versus online games, right? So my boys also have, they have Scarlet and Violet, which I think they play on the Switch. My kids are a little bit older, so I'm not really like monitoring these things. I just know I think they play that on the Switch. And then they have Unite also, which is another Pokemon game. So through Scarlet and Violet, right, we talked about the TCG, and the math and all the community and the social skills and all that kind of stuff that comes through TCG. But those online games, like those specifically, what do you think somebody gets out of something like that?
So with the online games, there's different levels of online games, right? And so it's very hard to like encapsulate it. But what I'm going to talk about specifically with online games is you are playing with strangers on the internet. And usually when parents think about online games, they think about voice chat. Not all games have voice chat, but like Pokemon Unite is a great example. It does have voice chat because in Pokemon Unite, you're on a team of 4 and your goal is to score more points in the other team's goal than yours. It's basically basketball with Pokemon. Like that's basically, that's basically how the game rolls. And so in a game like Pokemon Unite, you do have to have teammates and you have to have communication and you have to have trust and you have to have support. Those are all things that kids are learning in sports also. It's just a digital sport. And there's actually a whole category called esports where kids will train together and work together to learn how to collaborate and work as a team. Because if you go into a game of Pokemon Unite and everyone says, we're all going to be Squirtle, right? Or Blastoise if you're evolving it, but that's neither here nor there. But we're all going to be the same Pokemon. That's like filling a football team with all quarterbacks, right? It doesn't make any sense. And so you have to say, okay, well, what are your strengths? Okay, well, maybe you should be this Pokemon and I'll be this Pokemon. Yeah, but if I'm this Pokemon, I'm not scoring points. I'm defending. A lot of kids have a hard time with that. They're like, I want to score the points. I want to make the points. I don't want to be the goalie, but it's like, well, we need a goalie to make sure the other team doesn't score points. And so there's a lot of coordination that has to happen. And a good team will check their egos and do what's right for the team. It makes it very difficult when you jump into a lobby and don't know anyone. And it's like, you need to trust these complete strangers to have your back. And that's why I feel like parents really value my classes, is because we are communicating in a Zoom room while we're playing online. And so like your boys who were in the Pokemon Unite class, they would come and there would be other students that were there and they could coordinate and collaborate and everything, and then go into the match feeling confident and feeling ready. And then the teacher sometimes will join in, and sometimes we act more as a coach or a guide. It's like, maybe you should try being this Pokemon, or, oh, I saw that you were kind of doing this over here. Let's try and course correct. So in online games, that's usually the goal, is that you're working as a team to accomplish something. That's the whole point of online, is that you're connecting more than one person. Now, the scary thing about online is, of course, it's strangers. You don't know who your child is playing with. And that is where it is the responsibility of the parent to understand the limitations and the requirements for the game. Because like I said, not all games have voice chat. If it only has text chat, probably a little bit safer. If it has filters, if it has all these different things. And so it's very important as parents, even if you're not a gamer, if you are allowing your child to game, to educate yourself at least a little bit on what kinds of community are around that game and what kind of lobbies are in those games, what kind of people are attracted to that game, because it makes a total difference in the gaming experience.
Mm-hmm. That makes perfect sense. I like that you talked about teamwork and support and things like that too, because I totally had a situation with one of my kids. Now, Devyn, you're familiar with my boys. My older one is he's a hardcore Pokemon kid, but he's a little bit more chill personality wise. My youngest plays Pokemon as a blood sport, right? It is life and death, the ultimate situation, right? And so he was in a class online or like a social group online, and a new kid came who didn't really know how to play the game, let alone play it as a blood sport. And they got matched up as a team, and it did not go well, right? To the point that the mom sent me a message afterwards. So it was totally one of these moments. Like, and I went to the teacher and I was like, was my kid the asshole? And she was so nice. She was like, no, it was like, it was just, it was just miscommunication. And I was like, my kid was totally an asshole, right? So we sat down, we talked about it, and I had him write him like a little apology note, like, I hope you come back next week. Like, I'd be happy. And we talked about like encouraging him and like giving him some guidance and whatever, right? So like there was a huge interpersonal lesson in there in the mix as well, but I was like, not everyone plays these sports like it's, a multi-million-dollar Olympic level contract. Like, I'm just saying, I mean, like, but he's neurodivergent and intensity can be part of that, right? So it was a good opportunity for a little bit of a lesson. Okay, so I loved that answer so much that I want to go rogue if I can, and also ask you for a similar explanation for Minecraft. Like, because Minecraft, I think, is one of the big ones, right? Like, what is being learned through Minecraft? So we are not a Minecraft family, so it's pretty foreign to me. But in your experience, what are kids taking away from Minecraft? Kids who are just loving that game.
Minecraft is a fascinating game. I learn more and more about Minecraft every single time I play. So first of all, a lot of parents don't realize this. There's actually a Minecraft education edition. So if you have a child who loves Minecraft, look into that. There's like a full chemistry set. And so a child is digitally building, a lab and stuff. So that's one thing, is there's a whole education edition, and there's curriculum surrounding it. So if you want to go that road with Minecraft, it's very easy to see like what you're doing. Most people don't do that. If you're looking at it from the other perspective, there's two modes. There's creative mode and there's survival mode. So in creative mode, you are given every tool that's available in the game, every block, and you just can do whatever you want. There's no monsters or anything. I love that one because kids can just express themselves, right? It's just like giving them a pencil and a blank piece of paper and you say, build something, right? Draw something. And so I've had Minecraft creative classes, and some students are like, what are we doing today? And I just tell them, I say, we're doing whatever you want to do. And I had one girl, she like pillared up into the sky. Pillaring up is when you like put blocks on top of each other so you can go up high. She went up to the sky. She made a solar system. Oh. And then in the same class, there was another student. He was making a military tank. I was like, okay, then. I was making a cute little house. And then like the next week we all made snowmen and we had a snowball fight. So that's what's called a sandbox game, when you have this unlimited creativity available. And so that's one big benefit, is it's a really, really great outlet for children creatively. If they're wanting something like that, you can do anything. You can build buildings, you can do pixel art, you can do everything. Another piece of Minecraft is the survival side. And so with survival, you start, like I said, with absolutely nothing, standing on a beach usually, and then you have to survive. So you have to manage. This is where the resource management comes in. You have to chop wood. You have to make sure you have a shelter. If you don't have a shelter, then when the monsters come at night, they'll get you. And then you actually go through you go through the Stone Age, and then you go into like the Industrial Revolution as you build things. So you get like wood tools, then stone tools, and then iron tools. But each of these resources is more and more scarce. And so what children will do, not just children, adults too, but they'll build iron farms. So they will automate a machine that will give them iron. And there is so much specificity to this. They're using a tool called Redstone, and you can build full computers to do this. You are building machines to automate a process that is difficult. So there's a lot of engineering that you can do. There's a lot of creativity and a lot of resource management in Minecraft. And one of the best parts about Minecraft, see, in our house, we have a family server. And so there's me, my husband, our 4 daughters, and my brother-in-law, who's their favorite uncle. And all 7 of us hop on and we play together. And so like the other day, their uncle was on and they weren't on. And he went and he got saddles for all of them. And he said, here's saddles. You guys can go find horses. And then they'll hop on and they're like, oh, well, I brought you this apple. I thought you would like this apple. And then we build houses together. And so it becomes this very amazing family collaborative time where we're all in this virtual world together doing all sorts of just fun little silly things.
I love that. That's so awesome. We're not Minecraft people, but that explanation was attractive. liked it.
Okay, so Minecraft, it sounds interesting. It sounds great. It sounds like a lot of fun for family time as well. And I do like that aspect. I hear and see a lot of people talking about incorporating Minecraft into their learning journey specifically. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Is it easy? Is it useful? What's the best way to actually use Minecraft for learning and for homeschooling?
So for homeschooling specifically, I think Minecraft is a great example of I keep talking about economics because that's what I always think about with Minecraft, because it is such, I'll give you guys a little bit of an explanation on why I see it this way. When you start Minecraft, you're in a forest and there's wood everywhere, but wood breaks easily. And so then you have to go find stone. Stone breaks easily. So then you have to go and find iron. Iron is so hard to find. You have to go to a very specific location. You have to go and hunt it down. Then you have to come back and smelt it, and it still breaks. So then the next level is diamond, which is even harder to find. And so you have to build it, and then that'll break. And then there's netherite, which is like impossible to find. And so kids start to learn as they're doing it that they value iron in a way, you know, like at the very beginning, having iron is just the most amazing thing. I have an iron breastplate. I have an iron helmet. And so they start to learn the value of things. And so I think when we're talking about Minecraft, we take the experience they have and then we put it into their education. So as you're teaching them other things, be like, it's just like iron in Minecraft, right? This is something that we need. That's why gold is so valuable in the real world, or that's why they used this instead of this, or, you know, whatever the lesson is. But I think that it's not always that the learning happens on the game. I think that what happens is you look at the game, you see the elements that are being taught, and then you bring it into the real world. And so, yeah, if you were talking about iron, you could talk about it as supply and demand. Why does an iron axe cost $20 and the wood one only costs $5? And your child would understand. They'd say, oh, it's because wood is everywhere. It's like, exactly. And so why in the economy is this less expensive than this? Oh, it's because those are everywhere. Exactly. You have now understood the basics of supply and demand, and then you can kind of keep going with that vein. So that's one way. But in order to do that, we as parents have to understand the games just a little bit to be able to have that conversation with our child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have fallen short there sometimes with understanding the games. I totally admit that, you know, with my own kids, where like I get some of it, but it's like they're so deep in that it's hard to be at their level. And so I feel like no matter how much I learn, I'm still always going to be surface level in comparison to their jam. But I do love that. That was an awesome question, Amanda. So we've got more game schooling topics we want to explore. But first, we wanted to take a quick moment to invite you to come on over to Patreon and subscribe to our community there. There's a link in the description and also on our Instagram bio on our page. But there's a free unit study on hurricanes that's over there waiting for you. So if you're looking for ways to put some unit-based studies in there, some project-based learning, some of that goodness, come on over. It's sitting there waiting for you.
Yeah, so every month, subscribers in Patreon will get a free themed unit study that allows you to engage in multidisciplinary activities across right. Okay, so you can come out, check it out. You get to do all kinds of interesting things, right? I promise it's a good resource. I'm not going to try to use the big words. Clearly, I can't use big words today. So it's a and you know, you get to do some interesting things without having to put in a bunch of your own time looking for things and ruling out crappy links and broken links and whatever else. It works. It's all there. It's good. And you also, we're hosting 2 meetings a month for the second tier. So if you sign up for the second tier, you get to attend one Q&A where you get to hang out with both Meagan and I. And at that point, you can do customized homeschooling advice, general support, just general chat from us and other people who are there, right? And then the other is a mom's night that we'll be doing once a month, where you can, you know, roll up in your PJs, or you can get really cute if you just need a reason to get really cute. We're here for both of them. But let's be real, I really like activities where I don't have to put real clothes on. So in any event, either way, we hope you come join us. Come check out our Patreon.
Yeah, super excited. Can't wait to meet you and have kind of community on a different level. It'll be really fun.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the deal, right? We'll always be the first ones to admit that what works for one might not work for others. You kind of talked about that before too, Devyn, right? So for example, Minecraft, which we just talked about, was a hot mess for my oldest kiddo, who is now 16. It was an absolute disaster. We only had it for a few months, but he quickly became addicted and it changed his whole personality. It was just awful. So we do hear stories about parents where that's all their kids want to do is game, right? And they can't get their kids' attention for anything. They don't want to do anything outside of gaming. And it does kind of change their kids in a way where that becomes their sole focus and they become a little bit antisocial, et cetera, et cetera. So when you hear stuff like that, do you think that's a sign of gaming addiction, or what do you suggest in those situations? Because I think we hear that a lot in homeschool groups.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt, screen addiction, game addiction, TikTok addiction, right? Pick your thing on a screen. It's real, right? There's no question about it. And so it's important. And I think, Meagan, you already said it. It's important as parents to pay attention. If you notice that your child is going down that road, that it's like, oh, wow, they are changing. They are grumpy. They are sad. They are despondent, whatever it is, as soon as you as a parent recognize that, you have to figure out what's causing it. Sometimes it could be the game. Sometimes it's the quantity of the game. Sometimes it's the environment that they're playing the game in, the community that they're playing with. So there's a lot of different things that can contribute to it. And so what I have seen from parents who come to my classes is they like to use my classes as a screen time timer in a lot of ways. So I'll have a kiddo come to class and he's like, Miss Devyn, can we go for 5 more minutes? Because once class is over, I can't be on screens. And I'm like, all right, we'll go for 5 more minutes. Don't tell mom. It's fine, But what that does is it doesn't make mom the bad guy. It makes me the bad guy. It makes the clock the bad guy, right? The clock is the thing that is running out the screen time. Also, this child is now having a social experience while on screen. So he's playing his games, or she's playing her games, or whoever. They're playing the games and they're interacting with peers and they're interacting with an adult. And so it is higher quality screen time, because screen time is not all created equal. I think we all know that. There's a very, very big variety of types of screen time. And so in my classes, we take that screen time and we elevate it to a screen and social time. But I think as parents, the most important thing is just watch those cues from your children, because there are times in our house too where, my daughters, they'll just be playing a game and then after they're done, they're just a different person. I'm like, hey, you need a detox. I'm like, you're not playing games the rest of the night. And they're like, I want to play games. I'm like, I know you do, but your behavior is reflected in that. I was like, do you feel good right now? They're like, no. And I was like, well, why do you think you don't feel good? And they're like, because you took my games away. I'm like, no, that's not why. I'm like, no, you don't feel good because you haven't been outside yet today. Or when was the last time you ate? As parents, that is our job. It is our job to take care of these little humans because they don't always know how to moderate. Now, as time goes on, as they get older, they can see those signs and we don't have to moderate it quite as carefully. But it is important in those early days to make sure that we are giving them a good experience with whatever their interest is. Because the other side of it is that parents hear these stories of like gaming addiction and screen addiction, and it's just like scared, like they're scared. They're like, I don't want my child to do that. But if it's something that your child really loves and is really passionate about, it's also our job as parents to help them pursue that passion in a healthy way. So like my oldest, she loves video games. Like she is me. Like she loves them. She doesn't want to do other stuff. She wants to play video games. She wants to do this. And so I asked her the other day, I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she said, well, Mom, I want to make video games for Nintendo. And I was like, all right, well, let's start learning how to code and let's start learning some of the back end of video games. Because if you love video games, if this is your passion, I will pursue it with you. But let's set you up for success, because playing 17 hours of Minecraft a day, is not going to prepare you to eventually become a video game developer. It can help you for sure because you'll be in the world. But now let's take what you love and figure out what other skills we need to amplify so that you can become a video game designer. And my other children are like, I want to be an artist. I want to be a ballerina, whatever. But it's like, if my daughter says she wants to be a ballerina, what am I going to do? I'm going to put her in a dance class. Right. And so I think the biggest thing about video games in general is we have to, like Meagan was saying, we have to check our biases. Are we doing this behavior just because it's a video game? What if instead of a video game, it was dance? Or what if it was cooking? Or what if it was a language? Would we ask the same questions? And we would have to just kind of, again, address that for each child and each household.
Yeah, it's very true.
No, I think you made some great points, right? I really loved the point about if you're having issues around a video game, is it is it the game specifically? Is it where they're doing it? Is it the environment they're playing in? Like those are things I would have never thought of. And I bet there are a lot of other people, because we see it and hear it all the time, right? Like, oh, my kid is, having these problems because of video games. Well, like what part of that whole
Yes.
thing is the issue? Because I mean, I think in a lot of other areas in life, we're much better at isolating the specific issue and addressing it, um, instead of like, throw the baby out with the bathwater. And so I think that's a good thing for us to try to remember. And then I have to just a quick note. I love the you being the bad guy with the timer, an hour of gameplay, right? Like in our house, we have Alexa, and I really rely on her to be my bad guy. She's been the bad
Yes.
guy for years and years and years. It's not me, like you can have this time, set the Alexa timer. When Alexa goes off, she's yelling at you to stop, not me. Like she's reminding you to do this. It's not me. I'm not nagging. Like our life just doesn't need that, right? And so sometimes we need to be creative about how we put those limits in place without it really impacting our family dynamic, especially when we homeschool, right? Because you're with your kids so much, and for better and worse, you get to be the one to remind them to do their chores and their schoolwork and whatever kind of homework they have from outside classes and all of that. So anyone who can come in a class kind of environment and sort of take some of that burden off is a really nice thing in my world.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I can totally see that for sure.
Okay, so if parents are looking to find balance with gaming, right? We talked a lot about that and the good and the bad and the pros and the cons and how to make it work if it's something that seems like it's going to work for your kid. What are some ways that you recommend they bring that balance into their home life?
So balance starts with understanding. I think like I'm a really big proponent in parents getting involved in gaming. I really believe it, even if you have no interest in gaming. Again, I like to compare it a lot to sports or to books, right? If your child loves a book, you're probably going to read a little bit of it, or at least read the back of it, at least get a little bit of information, right? If your child loves a sport, you're going to learn some of the basic rules, right? You may not be able to like commentate at an Olympic level, but you're going to know like that's a basketball hoop, not a goal post or whatever. You're going to know those basics. So I think the very first thing is if you have a child who loves games, let them tell you about it and give them opportunities to talk about the games with you. So, Meagan mentioned that she feels like she's always behind with the stuff. You will be, and it's okay. You're never going to catch up. I'm never going to catch up. Right. And so, but what's important is that you're like, okay, well, tell me a little bit about your game, or even better yet, can you teach me how to play it? Can you teach me how to play this game a little bit? Because then again, I'm all about family time. I'm all about connecting with kids. And so now you're connecting with this common interest that is their common interest. And then you can elaborate on it at the dinner table. Like, oh, did you catch that Pokemon you were looking for? Or did you win that battle you were showing me? So I think that's the first thing, is that we've got to take video games out of the screen and bring it into life. That's the first balance, because when it just lives on the screen, especially if like the child is in their room or in the basement, some unsupervised space, that is where the balance can really get off kilter. I'm a big believer. My daughters, they don't have computers in their rooms. They don't have any gaming in their rooms, because I'm like, I want to know when you're doing this activity. And so I think that's another balance, is where is your child gaming? Is your child gaming in a public space in your home, or at least in a semi-public space, like an office with the door open? I also recommend, if your child is getting into gaming, have them take off the headphones, because you are going to learn a lot about the community based on the voice chat. If they're playing online, it makes a huge difference. And if you're just walking around the house, doing laundry, and then all of a sudden you hear like this angry yelling, you're going to realize, you're going to clue in as a parent and be like, I don't think that's the environment I want you in. Whereas if you hear someone like, oh, it's okay, you messed up, it's okay, then you're like, that is the environment that I want them in. And again, that's the benefit of a class like mine, is that the kids are always in a good environment. Mm-hmm. That environment piece is taken out. The balance piece is starting to get there, because now they're balancing it with the time, like we were saying with me being the bad guy or whatever. But again, it's hard to say how exactly to balance it when every child is different, but just make sure your kids are doing other things. Have them take breaks. Every day I'm like, okay, we're having an electronics break. Maybe it's an hour one day, maybe it's 5 hours another day. But what I really look for when I'm looking at my daughters and their gaming and stuff I look at their attitudes. I look at how they're reacting to me. I look at how they're treating each other. And that's kind of how I find that balance. If they're able to handle the video games and handle the real world, then I'm like, sure, let's keep playing. That's fine. But as soon as they stop being able to handle the real world, I stop it real quick. And I say, okay, we are taking a break right here, right now. And they'll fight it, every time. I'm like, we're taking a break. They're like, I don't want to. Just like if we leave the park, I don't want to, because they're loving it, So I think finding balance is important immediately, right? Don't wait until it's a big problem. Don't wait until your child can't have a conversation with another person. You've got to be on top of it as they're starting out.
Mm-hmm. That makes perfect sense. I couldn't agree more about the environment, about your classrooms, Devyn. So today you are actually our recommended resource.
Recommended resources. Do you need more homeschool supplies? No. Are you going to want these anyway? Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is a resource that you actually could incorporate because you're not physically bringing anything else into your home. You're opening doors for your kids, which is really awesome. So Devyn has an amazing team of educators and that she works with that are all equally as passionate about gaming as she is. My boys have taken classes with Devyn for years. They've also taken classes with her husband, who ironically goes by Mr. Devyn. And I absolutely love that because you're a total badass girl boss when your husband becomes Mr. Devyn, right? So I love it that your husband is like this super smart, successful person in his own right, and then gets called Mr. Devyn by a bunch of kids online, which I think is awesome. So when we lived in Texas, both of my boys were in Devyn's Thursday night unite class, and we're a family of 7. So on average, our houses, when we, wherever we've lived, they're a decent size because there's a lot of us crammed into one space, right? And we would be on the far side of the house and you would hear Liam. Now both boys were in class, so I told you earlier they're very different, right? One is a little bit more demure, right, and the other is a little bit more intense, right? And so we would never hear anything from my oldest kid, but Liam you would hear from the far side of the house going, go top, I got this, and we were like, oh my, we would sit there cracking up listening to him because he was just having like the time of his life and the whole neighborhood knew it because he was just having so much fun. So you can find Devyn on OutSchool and also on Recess, who's one of our sponsors, recess.gg. She provides a safe, supportive, and social environment for your kids to explore gaming in. So we're so thankful that you joined us today, Devyn, and definitely head over, check it out. Your kids will have an amazing time, learn a bunch, make friends. It's awesome.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm always happy to talk about games. And if you guys feel intimidated by games, send me a message, okay? Just reach out. Let me help you feel a little bit more comfortable with it. If you have questions about the games your kids are playing, if you're wondering, is this age appropriate or anything, please message me because I'm happy to talk about it and help you feel like you are prepared to support your child in this if this is something that they love.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's so awesome.
And thank you again for spending your birthday with us.
It was a good birthday present. I liked it.
We are the party,
I mean, I think we're awesome and we usually have a good time hanging out, but we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
So we're going to go ahead and wrap up with this week's mantra. So it is, I am the architect of our learning adventure, building a fortress of knowledge, brick by unpredictable brick.
Now I have Minecraft bricks in my head when we say that.
I know. I was like, did she actually mean that when she came up with that, or was that just chance?
You can just build a fortress in Minecraft now, your homeschool fortress. I like that.
There you go. I love it. Well, thank you for joining us and have a wonderful rest of your birthday. And for all of our listeners, happy homeschooling.
Have a great one.